Welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show that looks at the highs and the lows from around world football this weekend. Still no Chris Hamill. He is taking a few weeks off. Fair play to him. He's just relaxing. He will be back. Zach Jalab is in the building with me again today. Zachary, how are you, my friend?
I feel like any time I'm on this show, Chelsea have lost. So not great. Not great.
Yeah, well, let's come on to that straight away. Let's not waste any time. Let's start with the talking point. I want to throw some statistics and some, big words that are being bandied around with Chelsea right now.
Words.
One of them being sacking. Because The Athletic are reporting that Frank Lampard's job is under serious threat. Because, of course, that was Chelsea's fourth defeat in 7 games against Manchester City yesterday as they lost 3-1. They moved to 8th in the table. They've only won 1 in their last 7. After 17 matches in the Premier League last season, they had more points than they have this season, and they've spent 200 million in the summer. Lampard currently sitting on the lowest points per game of any manager in the Roman Abramovich era at Chelsea, and his biggest issue appears to be getting results against top sides at the moment. This season, they've lost 2-0 to Liverpool, 0-0 with United, 0-0 with Spurs, 3-1 against Arsenal, 3-1 against City. Not looking good for Frank Lampard, Zach, and sources have also told The Athletic that tensions between Lampard and a number of individuals in his squad, particularly those who have found themselves outside of his group of trusted regulars, have really hit the rocks. Lots of players being singled out for particular negative attention, one of them being Timo Werner. No goals in his last 12 games, his longest drought in 4 years. So as our resident Chelsea expert, what's your thoughts on this one? Do you think Frank Lampard is in a seriously precarious position right now?
It's just the narrative of football at the moment. 2 months ago we were talking about this as Ollie. A month ago we were talking about this as Arteta. It's just the narrative of who's doing bad. And it's not even necessarily about the football at times with the way it's being spoken about. It's more just which club is its turn to banter. And rightly so, it's Chelsea's. And Lampard is definitely under a lot of criticism. Last night, we were bad. We were really bad. That first half was dreadful to watch at times. And annoyingly so, it was arguably the starting 11 for Lampard. If you're looking at all the players that he has available and fit, then only really Reece James probably would have made it into that side instead of Aspie, who had a torrid time against Phil Foden, who had a great game. And maybe you would say eventually you'd see Havertz in over Kovacic. But because that front three was the perfect front three. It had been what Chelsea fans had asked for the entire season. It was the first time Ziyech and Pulisic were able to line up together. I think the last time it happened was when we were going to play Burnley and then Pulisic got injured in the warm-up. So in terms of that, there's not much that can be said. It couldn't really have got that much stronger. City were just incredible. I think it has to be said. As well as Chelsea being bad, we had midfield did not look good yesterday. Kante had a very rough time in a Chelsea shirt. City were really good. In my opinion, it was Gundogan's best ever game for City. Kevin De Bruyne playing in that false 9 position just ran at us all day. Sterling put Ben Chilwell in his place. As I said, Phil Foden absolutely dominated Azpilicueta. And it felt like at times, we had a decent first 10 minutes, but looking back at it, it just felt like that was City just being like, okay, so this is what they're going to do. We'll then counteract this for the whole game. And to be quite honest, the scoreline could have been a lot worse. I think in the second half, City were more comfortable just to hold the 3-0 scoreline. And if they wanted to, it could have been 6-0, theoretically. But with that being said, the reaction on social media afterwards was a little bit mental, if I'm being quite honest. People calling for Lampard out, saying, there's no philosophy and all this kind of stuff. And it's the same people that, again, like a month ago after we were 14 games unbeaten, were loving it and saying we're going to be title challengers.
17 you were. It was 17 games unbeaten a month ago.
And Lampard said then, calm down, everyone. This isn't going to go as well as people think. We will have bad patches. We go through a bad patch, and he goes, "I told you all," and everyone's going, "Well, you said this and that," and it's not working out right. What's going wrong? Now, I think partially that is been unfortunate as to the Timo Werner situation, him not scoring, but people moaning at Timo Werner yesterday. just didn't have any opportunities to score anyway. And he's obviously a player that wants to be involved in the play. So when he's not getting anything striker, he'll drop in to try and get the ball.
Do you think he can play as a lone striker, though? Because I was watching yesterday's match, and I was thinking, he's up against the best defence in the league right now. John Stones looks totally rejuvenated, of course, playing alongside Ruben Dias. But I watched that game, and I thought, he is not going to play, ever, in my opinion, as the lone striker for Chelsea. Like, he needs a player up alongside him to pop balls off of, to win balls in the air for him, to run off the back of. When he's got his back to goal, it's so easy for Ruben Dias.
But this is what annoys.
Get out of the way.
This is what frustrates me. Is we know he's not good with his back to goal, so why are we playing with his back to goal? That's what I couldn't understand. Like, we would still continue to cross in the ball, and that's where you do have to think, okay, what's being said here? Because obviously we do like to cross it in, and we're targeting this back post. But then no one was running into that back post position when Ziyech was putting in those balls. It's also worth being said that was Ziyech's first game or first minutes after missing 7 games through injury as well. So people can't have just expected him to be back onto the form he was just before he got injured. I would like to see a 2 up top situation. That kind of confused me. That maybe I thought, oh, look, we're 3-0 down now. Our midfield is having a really rough time. Why don't we get a Giroud on to play up top with Werner and kind of miss their midfield, go long, get it down to him, and then he can play it on. So we didn't try that, but for anyone that I've seen saying that Lampard should be sacked, it's a no from me. I think everyone in the board kind of knew that bringing in Lampard was this change of era, this different thing that was happening. It wasn't going to be the Chelsea of old, where if a manager has a bad month or two, he can get sacked. If he loses a couple of games,
I'm not sure
he can get sacked. And yes, people will say Chelsea have spent £200 million. I completely agree. However, there is this seemingly understanding between Chelsea and the board, from what at least I've felt and I've read and I've seen, that okay, no matter how bad it gets this season, we're going to try and stick by Lampard. People forget as well, Lampard is still an extremely young manager. The situations that he's dealing with now, he's probably never dealt with before. I mean, he definitely didn't deal with them at Derby. And last season, he hadn't bought any players, so he didn't deal with them then. He's only dealing with it now with these players who have obviously spent a lot of money on and aren't probably contributing anywhere near enough to what their price tag should be. So he's learning to deal with that kind of situation. I don't see anything happening this season with I personally don't think it can really get any worse. We've got Morecambe in the FA Cup. We've then got Fulham as our next Premier League game. After that, I think it's
big couple jinxes there
Leicester
from Zach
City.
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, if the world's
it can't get any worse.
If I'm the guy that somehow causes it, then Jesus Christ, the world definitely doesn't evolve. I can't even say the word.
Do you know what though? Like I partially agree with you. I think that it's too early to think about sacking Frank Lampard right now. But my worry, if I was Frank, is that Chelsea, unlike Arsenal, unlike Manchester United, are an extremely trigger-happy club. They've had continued success from a revolving door of managers over the years. And I think Abramovich will, when all's said and done, come back to the fact that he sacked managers in the past and had big success with their replacements.
But then I look at the replacements. That's
the reason that it would concern me if I was Frank Lampard seeing Allegri and Tuchel on the market right now.
But I don't think I feel like if it was a different manager who had a bit more about him, like Allegri especially not. I don't think, especially with the way Chelsea are looking to try and play their football, a bit more expansive football. Going out and getting Allegri is just going, okay, we're completely changing up what we wanted to do. Tuchel is probably more along the lines. I don't think you
know what you want to do right now. You don't know what your best first 11 is. You don't know what style of football you're trying to play. 1 week it's in crossing the ball into Giroud, then it's starting as Timo as a number 9.
Yeah, sure, and I think that's also Lampard still trying to figure that out, and I completely agree. But then I don't think Tuchel has really, sure, he'd won League and he got to the Champions League final, and that's great. But then he got sacked, and he was first in League One. I don't think he is worth sacking Frank Lampard for, because it's just going to be the continued cycle of Tuchel has a year and then doesn't win the Premier League and gets sacked, and it continues and continues. And I honestly feel like Chelsea have changed that. I feel like when they hired Lampard, they accepted that this wasn't going to be success straight away, and they have had that conversation with him. I mean, in interviews that I've seen, that's what's been said. That, you know, we're not going to be expecting the Premier League title this season. Of course not. And I don't
think that. Yeah, I agree that they're not expecting the Premier League title, but I think Abramovich is looking at it and thinking, I put £200 million into it, and we're on less points than we were at this stage last
Sure
season.
thing.
And obviously it's a slightly different scenario because of the way the season's played out. It's super competitive from first down to 10th this season, but equally, I do think Frank needs to pick up some results quickly just because they're so trigger happy. I think it's a very different scenario to Mikel Arteta and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Sure. In terms of board, yes, but I also I don't think any decision will be made until the end of the season, because as you said, it's a situation right now where Chelsea could win their next 2 games and then be back in 4th. And then everyone's going, we all overreacted, and that's partially what it is, right? Like right now, it's about what sells in the media, and right now this is obviously the biggest story for it to do so, and it's understandable. But it is so, like, the season is so crazy where it is 2 wins on the bounce can mean you go back into the Champions League places. So I don't think people should be hurrying their decision until the end of the season, especially when realistically I don't think any of the managers that are on the market are worth you changing the possible, you know, thing that you were trying to build. I don't know how many years for the past, you know, since he's been in the job, it's been about this project. Like you look back at, you know, Jurgen Klopp's years at Liverpool, especially at the start, it was, you know, he had a rough time as well. I mean, I could get out results.
But I guess the point people will make is that Jurgen Klopp wasn't given 200 million in his first summer as manager.
Sure, that would make sense, but also, compared to that Chelsea squad last season, like, it needed 200 million to even be... Like, realistically, Chelsea getting the Champions League places last season was insane. It needed £200 million to get into that Champions... To realistically be going for those higher places in the Premier League. And so, I mean... I would also agree to that statement.
It is a tough one. I know what you're saying, and like I was watching Frank Lampard after the game, and he was quite bullish about his team, wasn't he? He was talking about, like you said earlier, the highs and the lows that you're going to experience this season. If you missed it, give this a listen.
But any player in football is going to have moments like that. Some of the results we've seen this season for other teams, Man City, Liverpool, etc., have been harsh for them. Now, because we're in a bit of a period, it becomes even harsher for us. I won't hide away from that, but the players, myself, have to take it on the chin and react. This is football.
Right then, before Jalab, you know, really starts to go to a dark place, we're going to move on. If you guys at home think Frank Lampard should be in charge, or if he should be out, I want you to leave a comment below with Lampard in or Lampard out. And at the end of it, we'll see which of those two produced more comments. Also, while you're there, hit the like button because, you know, it does help the video out. Let's move on to our first winners this week then. And it's Arsenal, because they continued a little mini rejuvenation with a thumping 4-0 win over what can only be described at this stage as an absolutely pathetic West Bromwich Albion side away from home. They did manage, Arsenal, this is 12 shots on target, which is pretty impressive, and it's the most of any side in a single game post Arsene Wenger, which is a big positive for Mikel Arteta, because at the start of the season his side was so shot shy it was almost embarrassing. It's now, of course, 3 wins on the bounce since that humbling by Manchester City, and it's seen them jump up to 11th. Whisper it, Jalab, just 3 points behind Chelsea. And, you know, they're starting to produce goals. They're starting to produce chances. Their first 14 games in the Premier League this season, 4 wins, 12 goals scored. In their last 3 games, in their last 3 wins, they've scored 8 goals. So massive improvements being made. Bukayo Saka out on that right wing looks like he might finally have found his position. That's 3 goal involvements in 3 games for the youngster. He's being helped out by Emile Smith-Rowe playing in that creative attacking role. Now seems like they're not going to go in for Isco because of Smith-Rowe's sort of breakthrough. He's been really impressive. I think he's got both of the assists for Bukayo Saka's last 2 goals. And Alexandre Lacazette finally seems to have turned up. He seems to have swapped bodies with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. 5 goals in his last 4 games, 3 of which, by the way, have come when Arsenal were either level or losing. So not just sort of luxury goals, very important ones as well. Nice to see him firing. They've just got to get Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang amongst the goals now, because they are paying him 350 grand a week. And, you know, there are some positives coming for Arsenal, but there aren't many positives coming for West Brom, Jalab.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, shambles isn't even probably a big enough word to describe what's happening. You know, the one thing Big Sam had about his career was that he never got relegated with a team from the Premier League, and currently that could be in doubt unless he leaves before they do get relegated.
Do you think that's a possibility?
Sorry? Yeah, 100%.
Do you think that's a possibility that he could do that? He could just go, I'm not
come on. Like, obviously, I don't know the man's character fully, but I would not be surprised at all if that was to happen. And you know what? I honestly hope he gets relegated. I'm not his biggest fan. Anyway, they're still on 8 points. Fulham are now 3 points clear with 2 games in hand ahead of them. So it is not looking good at all down there for them. They've conceded 21 goals in the last 7 games and scored just 3 goals. 13 of those have come under Sam Allardyce in his first 4 games in charge. Normally, the one thing that Allardyce brings you is at least a settled defence. They can barely do that at the moment. He said, "No disrespect to my players at all. They're trying as hard as they possibly can. But I do have to find better players to lift the squad and lift their confidence." If you didn't know, the January transfer window is now bang open. So he's going to be looking in the market for some players to help out West Brom. Yeah, it's not looking good for the Baggies at all. I think they're almost guaranteed to be going down. But what do you guys think? Please let us know in the comments below who will be getting relegated this season, and do you think it will be West Brom? Will Big Sam finally lose that title? Let us know down below.
Before we move on to our losers this week, if you are new to the channel, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on to never miss a video in 2021. We're talking about Aston Villa this week in our losers Jalab, because they lost 2-1 to Man United, didn't they?
They did, despite a brave display. To be fair, a draw probably would have sufficed, and they were unfortunate not to get that.
I agree.
Villa have a horrific record versus United. In the last 16 Premier League matches against United, they've lost 12 and draw 4 times. Jack Grealish was unsurprisingly probably the best player on the night. Unbelievable. Created 4 big chances on the night. Also put up 4 tackles and interceptions, doing the work both sides of the pitch. His numbers have also gone to the next level this season. Last season, 36 games, 8 goals, 6 assists. Just this season, barely halfway through, 15 games, 5 goals and 7 assists. Now, despite the loss, Villa are still 3 points off of 4th with a game in hand. So Dean Smith will be delighted with his performance. But Joseph, how were United?
I thought we were okay. Not brilliant. I agree with your sort of claim at the beginning that a draw probably would have been a fair result here. I thought Aston Villa dominated the ball, but United had the bigger and better chances, really, and of course moved level on points with leaders Liverpool. Another Bruno Fernandes penalty. Let's talk about it before we get into it. Jalab, did you think it was a pen?
I can see why, slightly, because he's taken a little knock, but not enough to go down. He's then tripped over himself personally. I can see why it's a penalty, but then, like, after other penalties not being given, it shouldn't have been a penalty. Consistency.
Yeah, it's a bit of a soft one, isn't it? It's a bit of a soft one. I think if the ref doesn't give that and it goes to VAR, that decision would also have been upheld, if that makes sense. I think it's almost like referee's discretion on that one. But it's been a good few months for Manchester United, because they were, of course, 9 points behind Liverpool when Arsenal beat them 1-0 at Old Trafford on the 1st of November. But they've made that gap up in just 2 months. And are now sort of in the conversation amongst Liverpool as potential title candidates. I personally still don't believe the defence is there to muster it, although Eric Bailly did look very good against Villa and has looked very good in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks I don't believe he'll be able to stay fit for the entire season to help Manchester United, and that's what's going to come back to bite them. I thought Paul Pogba is really getting back to his best, looked totally rejuvenated against Aston Villa, and Fred continues this sort of mini surge that we've seen this season and across the last 12 months of really becoming a bit of a pit bull in midfield. I think he's one of United's best players this season, and anyone who hasn't watched United probably still doesn't rate him. But it was Bruno, wasn't it, as it is every week, that came up with the winning goal, taking his tally to the season to 11 goals, which is ridiculous. In Premier League history, the only player to be involved directly in more goals in their first 30 Premier League appearances was Andy Cole. He got 37, and I think Bruno Fernandes has 33 goal involvements.
Wow.
So he's going at a ridiculous rate, almost an unsustainable rate. But he's also playing so many games, like he's starting to look tired.
Yeah.
I thought Rashford looked really tired against Villa. And United obviously play Manchester City midweek in the Carabao. I don't know how Bruno gets through that 90 minutes with Rashford, but they have to because they're so key. It is, of course, now I think 27 penalties since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took charge of Manchester United in the Premier League, the most of any team. It's weird, isn't it? Like, I don't... There's obviously not a hidden agenda, or there's not some weird conspiracy that some people say, but Man United are getting an awful lot of penalties. And it doesn't seem to be stopping, Jalab.
The thing is, like, if you actually look back at their penalties, a lot of them are penalties. Like, out of that 27, I would maybe say, like, 5 are controversial. Because the players that you have are tricky guys inside the box who like having the ball inside the box and are happy to take on a player. Martial, Rashford, Bruno. So Pogba.
And they're very good at winning,
exactly,
buying penalties.
100%.
Like putting a foot out and going to deck.
Precisely.
Which in 2021 is like commonplace. Like,
Precisely.
People still moan about it.
Yeah.
But it just happens now.
Exactly. And he also, like, some of the defensive you come up against, realistically, they should know that, okay, we're playing Manchester United, they like to go down the box, and they still put in silly challenges. So I would also say, like, majority of those pens are probably fine. You know, it's just that bias of obviously you guys being United and winning penalties all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Man United at the moment doing pretty well. Let's just give them a bit of time though, because these players are going to seriously blow out of steam in about the next 2 months. They look so tired. But what did you guys make of the Aston Villa versus Manchester United game? Let us know in the comments below. That's all we've got time for today. Jalab, what should the people do next?
Head over to Snapchat if you've got the app. If you haven't, go and download Snapchat and type in Football Daily. Check it out over there. We bring you daily stories. And with the January transfer window open, you'll be getting daily transfer stories all month long.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.